Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about things that I learned from broadcasting a corn and soybean food plot in the 2023 season. We're out in the 3/4 acre soybean and corn food plot that we did full broadcast on. And we're out here monitoring results and getting ideas of what we liked, what I didn't like. And I'm going to share those with you. As you can see, we are right after tassel. Pull this ear off. All right, we're at blister right here. It means every one of these little kernels is full of liquid. This will continue to harden over the coming weeks. This is a successful plot. There's no question about that. Now, whether it makes it to rifle season, muzzleloader season, just being a small 3/4 acre plot in the middle of nowhere, I can't tell you that yet. But I can tell you that we have got a lot of food for the whitetails come this fall. This has been probably the most successful plot that I've had this year. 2023 has been full of droughts to flooding, anywhere in between. I've got a lot of wildlife damage in the corn that I planted in rows. Still looks fine. There's still going to be a lot of corn there. In this broadcast corn and soybean food plot, there is a noticeable difference in the amount of wildlife damage. Last year when I had corn here, this plot got destroyed probably a week or 10 days before it is right now. This has done very, very well at not letting the whitetails get in here. And I'm gonna go over why I think that's possible. Right now, I wanna go through and I just wanna kind of walk through this, take you guys through this, show you some of the corn, some of the soybeans that are out actually in the plot. We're right on the edge right here. And we're just gonna try to gather some information, some intel, on this food plot. What do we like about it and what we don't? Okay, first off, I wanted to show you some of the soybeans. Obviously, the corn is 10, 12 feet tall. It's shaded a lot of them out down here. Get that horse nettle out of the way. But you can see, here's a soybean plant. It's been grazed off 1, 2, 3 different times, 4 different times, and possibly more down here. They're clearly eating that. Same thing for that one. You can see all those that they've been chewed off. Same thing for this one here. This one actually probably has been chewed off more times. And it's still alive. It's still doing good. That's probably a foot tall. Our herbicide in these thinner spots is definitely beginning to play out. As you can obviously see, we are looking just fine and dandy. It is just unbelievable the amount of food that is growing right here. I mean, if you just look at here, I mean, gosh, just look at all those ears. And those are big ears too. I mean, those are 10 inches long. I'll show you this in the drone picture. We can pick this up right here in the drone picture, some of these thinner spots that we have. But this corn is legitimately 10 feet tall, maybe taller than that. Like I said, the soybeans are getting hammered, and as the corn has kind of outgrown it, the soybeans have really become irrelevant. All right, let's pull a little bit more of a mature ear. You can see the brown silts on that one. There's still some white silts on it, so it's still not completely done. There you go. For reference, there's, you know, my hand filled out nicely, pollinated nicely. This spot was planted, I believe it was the 15th of June. Calendar year, it would have said don't even think about planting it. You're going to expect subpar results. This is river bottom soil, pretty good soil, honestly. This is some good dirt down here. For deer corn, tickled to absolute death with that. So one of the first things that we know about planting a broadcast corn and soybean food plot is we absolutely must have a hybrid that's going to flex. Now, what in the world does flex mean? So a flexing ear means something that when the spacing gets off and that plant can make a much larger ear than say a fixed ear could. No matter how hard you try, you're not going to get perfect population, perfect spread density to where every single one is like a drill. You're just not going to do it. I took as much time out here as I possibly could doing that. I still have a few thin spots, which are okay. It's not a disaster. It's just extremely difficult to get that seed spread out uniformly. I've walked through an awful lot of corn in my life. one reason I'm doing this right here for you is to show you just how difficult it is getting through this corn without it being in rows. Now you can see all of a sudden we've got deer. That is deer, 100%, no question about it. You know, the stalks aren't broke over like it is on coons. So what they're doing is they're just staying right here, flipping that shuck up, and they just eating their little hearts out. But this is so much more difficult walking through this than it is on standard 30-inch row corn. Okay guys, so the amount of corn that I've walked through in my life is no telling how many. I love farming for wildlife. That's why I started this channel, and I have been out in these plots pretty regular all summer long. The first thing that screams out at me when I walk into this broadcast plot is the lack of deer damage that's out here. This plot is significantly less damage than all the other plots. No question about it. This is the only plot that I did broadcast. All the rest of them I planted with my 6-row planter. I protected this plot with a scarecrow. Once you get this kind of started and established and you get it waist high or a little bit above, the wildlife pressure is less in these plots than it is in where I'm planting 30-inch rows on other plots. And I think it's just because it's so much easier walking in a 30-inch row, and you can just pick and pick and pick and pick. And I think that's what the whitetails are doing. They feel comfortable. There's a lot of cover in there. To get through some of these places, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. So, you know, with a 30-inch row, you spread one open and then you can step through a row. You can't do that here. You might do it, but then there's nowhere to go. The corn is just kind of so scattered that it really makes having a road through there much more difficult. Traveling through here much more difficult than what it is on a standard planted row. You absolutely have to have a plant that's going to flex. The next thing that we learned out here is you have to get the amount of seed that you're looking for out here. So important not to put too much. If you crowd corn, corn does not do well. If I would have doubled this population out here, it would be very sorry corn. You have to have that perfect rate out here. And to start that, you have to know how many acres you have. And we all like to say this plot's an acre or this plot's a 3/4 of an acre, but you really need to get out here and walk this off and to figure out exactly how much ground you have. And then when you buy your corn seed, you need to look at that corn seed. Corn seed varies in size an awful lot. What you need to do is there's going to have a weight on that bag. I've had corn bags that were 55 pounds for a 80,000 kernel unit. I've also had some that are like close to 40 pounds for an 80,000 kernel unit. Back earlier, I told you guys to do 20-25 pounds. That's true in most standard cases, but the issue is there's a lot of differences in size, and there's a lot of differences that vary between how big or how much weight is in that 80,000 kernel bag. So what you need to do is you need to get your bag and you need to say, okay, this bag weighs 40 pounds and it's got 80,000 kernels in it. Do the math and get down to where you're planting 26 to about, I would say in broadcasting, you could probably bump it to 34,000 because you know some of them are not going to come up. But I spread this like 4 or 5 times, and that's no lie. I went over this because I was so scared to put too much in one place. I would go over it, and then I would keep the opener where it was when I was broadcasting, just barely open, and you're just barely hearing some click. It's not like you're sowing urea on your brassica plots. It's barely going when you're doing this. But I think that's the best way of ensuring that you don't get too much seed in these places, and then the corn's not going to do well. The next thing it's important to note is you have to have the right herbicide, okay? You have to. If this field is still fairly clean, yes, there is a little bit of horse nettle in some of these thin spots, but for the most part, you don't see 4 foot, 5 foot tall grass out here. It's been eliminated. We came through pre-plant and we sprayed it and we killed everything off of it. We came in here and we tilled it. We planted it, we tilled it again, tilled it back under. And then when the corn was about 2 feet tall, I came in here and I sprayed it. And I sprayed it with Anthem Max and I sprayed it with Roundup, which both of the corn and soybeans are Roundup resistant, so I can do that. The Anthem Max is the residual, and you can see just how good the weed control is in these plots. There's not a bunch of grass coming. There is a few weeds scattered here and there in thin spots, but for the most part you get out in there and it's pretty clean. So the Anthem Max really does a very good job of keeping the corn and soybean food plot clean. The most important thing I learned planting this plot is you have to protect it. When it is starting to come up, you absolutely have to protect it. If you don't protect it, there's not going to be anything left. If you're in an area where crows, turkeys, high density deer, which is what we're in right here, I'll show you the drone footage from this. You can tell it's wilderness all the way around this plot. This is 3/4 of an acre out in the middle of a thicket. This is a wetland program where the government came in here and planted trees. They leave a couple small spots for food plots. This one is 3/4 of an acre. And it's just amazing that there's actually anything here that the deer, this is high density deer zone here. And the fact that we have corn here in middle of August, and it looks like we are gonna have corn here for the hunters to hunt over in November, is that's just an amazing thing. And that's just a testimony to how effective that scarecrow was early on. When I first planted this plot, the first time, the crows and the turkey pulled up, I'd say 80–90% of this plot. So much so that I had to completely till everything under and start over again. And then I immediately put a scarecrow out there, and here's where I'm at now. Protecting that plot is such an important step in this process, whether that's with a scarecrow, electric fencing, any other type of deterrent that you have available to you. But this has really been a good plot, and I would highly recommend this to you guys. I'll be doing another one next year to show you guys, and I'll have another update for you closer to November, when this is actually going to be useful for the whitetail, for us to hunt over rather. If you found this video helpful, please smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you.